2 weeks after a deadly fire and explosion, the Robbins Lumber Mill in Searsmont is back up and running.
In a post now on their website, Vice President and co-owner Catherine Robbins Halstead thanking people for an incredible outpouring of support. It was May 15th. Firefighters were called to the mill to tackle a fire, which then led to the explosion in a silo.
One firefighter, a volunteer with the Morrill Department named Andrew Cross, was killed. 10 more people, both firefighters and members of the Robbins family, were hospitalized. The mill has been processing orders again since Friday.
Robbins is able to lean on some of their other properties around the state to remain fully operational. Robbins Halstead also reports the injured Robbins family members remain hospitalized. They are at Mass General. She says the family is hopeful and encouraged by their progress. Richard Thorpe has been found guilty of intentional, knowing, or depraved indifference murder in the death of his ex-girlfriend, 39-year-old Virginia Cookson.
The jury deliberated for just over an hour this afternoon before reaching a guilty verdict. The defense plans to file a motion for Thorpe to undergo a psychiatric evaluation prior to sentencing. Throughout the 5-day trial, the prosecution pointed to multiple pieces of evidence, including the fact that Thorpe's DNA was found on the HDMI cord discovered wrapped around Cookson's neck.
This was we feel a very strong case, and so we were just waiting for it to get to the jury, and thankfully they agreed with us and came back with a quick guilty verdict.
There was some pretty compelling evidence presented by the state of guilt, and we did have some issues with regard to the investigation.
Thorpe will be sentenced September 1st.
Maine's Office of the Public Advocate is asking for a formal investigation into a Portland area ferry service. Casco Bay Lines recently raised its fares.
That's the ferry service that's primarily used for connecting Portland with several island communities throughout Casco Bay. News Center Maine's Alex Haskell live in our studio now with what he's learning today. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Brian. Hi, Amanda. Well, Maine Public Advocate Heather Sanborn tells me her office is asking the Maine Public Utilities Commission to investigate Casco Bay Line's fares, specifically those affecting Peaks Island residents. Sanborn is calling for an investigation of the vehicle rates that took effect last summer, as well as new passenger fares scheduled to take effect later this month. She argues the current rate structure could place a disproportionate burden on low and moderate income Peaks Island residents who may not be able to afford or do not travel frequently enough to benefit from discount passes. Sanborn says discounts are concentrated in annual and 90-day passes, which require a significant upfront cost.
That means that low and moderate income residents would have to fork over many hundreds of dollars at a time in order to be able to buy these passes. And then the passes, frankly, may expire before they're able to get enough economic use out of them.
So right now during peak season, a round trip for an adult from Peaks to Portland is $14. That's going up to $16 later this month. The annual pass is going up $3 to $435. Now in a statement, Casco Bay Lines general manager says the ferry service remains committed to a rate design that prioritizes affordability and accessibility for island residents. And a spokesperson for the Maine Public Utilities Commission says the commission will review the request for an investigation and determine its next steps. In studio, Alex Haskell, News Center Maine.
Tonight, Portland City Council is expected to take a final vote on next year's $364 million budget.
Another item potentially on the agenda tonight is a vote on a new program that could change how nonprofits contribute to city finances. News Center Maine's Sam Olson has a look.
The proposal is called the Payment in Lieu of Tax, or PILOT policy. It's designed to address the city's tax burden. Right now, the city of Portland has $4 billion worth of property that is exempt from taxes. Officials estimate that if those properties were on the tax rolls, property taxes for other owners could be about 20% lower.
There's already an environment that's been very stressful for nonprofits over the last several months.
The executive director of the Maine Association of Nonprofits, Jennifer Hutchins, says she thinks these requests should be done on a case-by-case basis.
Our group opposes any kind of formal across the board pilot program on nonprofits because it doesn't acknowledge how different nonprofits are.
For this program, the requests are based on the value of property owned by a nonprofit past $10 million. So it reduces requests to smaller nonprofits. The policy would be voluntary, though.
We know from other jurisdictions that have tried to do this type of program, some nonprofits end up reaching an agreement with the city and decide to pay for certain services, and then others just ignore the program. How is that a fair way of doing it?
And whatever nonprofits decide to pay will be made public through an annual report released by the city. Sam Olson, News Center, Maine.
Meanwhile, supporters think the voluntary payments would help stabilize city finances without raising taxes for homeowners. At tonight's meeting, city staff have recommended pushing this topic to the meeting on the 15th, but the council will decide when to take it up.
We are just 8 days from primary day here in Maine. Candidates are ramping up their efforts to connect with voters.
Today, Democratic gubernatorial candidate Angus King III began a road trip traveling to all 16 counties in 24 hours. He started his tour at 4:30 this morning at Dysart's in Herman before heading down to the coast. King stopped in Belfast, Rockland, Wiscasset, Bath, and Brunswick before reaching Saco by noon in his 7th county. King says meeting with Mainers across the state, hearing their concerns, it's his favorite part of campaigning.
You get to visit with people and learn about what they care about, what their problems are, what their challenges are, but importantly, what their hopes are. And what I keep hearing from people is, we can do this. We can make this a better place. Maine is a special place filled with people who want to get along, who want to get things done, who want to buckle down and make life better for their communities and each other. And that's what I'm hoping to hear today.
Right now, King is expected to be in Augusta before then heading farther inland. He has stops planned in Skowhegan, Dover, Foxcroft, and Holton before finishing his tour at West Quoddy Head Lighthouse at sunrise tomorrow. And one of the 7 Republicans running for governor, David Jones, unveiled how he plans to rank his primary ballot today.
Jones has historically been a critic of ranked choice voting, even taking part in a lawsuit against it. But he says Republicans need to use the system or risk disenfranchising themselves. Jones says Maine needs a businessman leading the state, and that's why he ranked himself first, followed by Ben Midgley, who Jones joined forces with earlier in the campaign. After that came Owen McCarthy and Jonathan Bush. 5th and 6th place were Garrett Mason and Robert Wessels, respectively. Jones opted not to rank Bobby Charles, saying, quote, "I just can't bring myself to do it," end quote. Jones says he does not know if he would vote for Charles if he advances to November's ballot.
I don't know. He'd have to show me that he'd have to demonstrate to me that I could trust him and that he would do the job that needs to be done here in Augusta. So the answer, he hasn't done it in a year. How's he going to do it in the next 5.5 months?
Jones says if he's elected governor, he would work with the legislature to repeal ranked choice voting in Maine.